Port Royal, the dice game. Fenny Rob here. I'm going to be teaching my friend, yes, he is my friend, yet he is evil Jeff, how to play the game. He's never played this before. He has played Port Royal, the card game that this is based on, the original game. All right, so in this game, it's the same concept. You're going to be pushing your luck. Instead of flipping cards here, though, we're going to be doing a roll and write with these two dice.
Okay.
The goal of the game is to get 20 points first.
Okay.
But there are a couple of spots on the board where if you have 11 or 12 points and it's your turn and you're able to have a really good turn, you can win the game automatically. It's called sudden death. So you may actually be able to win the game before getting 20 points.
Okay.
But you have to be on the spots. Like if you have 11 or 12 points, you can get this. If you have 13 or 14, you get this. And if you have more 15 or more at any time, if it's your turn and you complete this little mission here, you will win the game. And I'll show you what that means.
Okay.
The easiest way I think to teach the game is almost to kind of show you a turn.
Okay.
Now, it's a roll and write game, which is kind of weird. I wouldn't have known that when you think of the dice game, but it is a roll and write game. And what you're going to be doing is there's an X here that starts. There are 4 maps that come with the game. We're looking at the first one, and they get slightly more complex as you go from map to map.
Are they all the same?
Yes, our chapter 1s are the same.
Okay.
On the left side, you're going to have this is basically your tableau. And on the right side here is the spaces you'll be filling in to explore the map.
Okay.
Now, on a player's turn, what will happen is the active player will roll these dice, and the dice will have a letter and a color, and it will also have a number with swords underneath it. Mm-hmm. Now, in the real Port Royal game, in the original, you could repel, if you had enough swords, you could repel the cards so you wouldn't bust. Same thing here. You start the game, though, with no swords. You get swords by getting sailors and pirates, just like you would in the regular game, and also orange wheels. And I'll show you how those work. So what happens here is I've rolled those. That's telling me a coordinate on this map, on this chart. So C, blue, means I go to column C and look to blue.
Okay.
And this tells me, because it's light colored and doesn't have the ship wheel, that I put the blue ship there. C, blue.
Okay.
All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll again. I could stop. And if I stopped, just like you would in regular Port Royal, right? You turn cards over. That's one ship. In Port Royal, you bust if you get the same ship twice, and you can't repel the cards. In this game, it's the same type thing. If I were to roll another blue that had, let's see, anything, even if it's not the same spot, if it required me to put a ship out, blue D would require to put a ship out, I would bust. Because the ship's already there. I get nothing. Now you would then get to actually purchase anyway. Okay, in the original Port Royal, you would have the explore phase where you'd flip over cards, and then you would go to the market afterwards where you could hire people and everyone could follow you, right?
Right.
In this game, it's similar. So I'm going to roll again.
Okay.
Because I didn't bust. So I'm going to roll again. And this time it's B and black. There is one ship in all the colors.
Right.
And so this would be B3.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, not 3. B black. It's hard sometimes to tell because the numbers only represent the swords. To repel that would be 5 swords, and we have nothing. So what I'm going to do is, at this point, because it's a good way to show you, is I'm going to stop.
Okay.
And now we look to these charts. It's the iconography on here at first glance is a little complicated, but it makes a whole lot of sense. So what's going to happen here is I didn't bust. I look here on this column that shows how many things are out here. There are 2 things out here.
Right.
So that means I get to buy one thing first.
Okay.
Then everybody else clockwise would follow, and the game plays up to 5 players. But this also tells me that I must also cross off a skull on my board. And if you look here to the left, you have skulls. The first skull, nothing happens. But as you get further and further down the skulls, you start losing points. -1, -1, -1,
And they're
-1.
cumulative when you hit the skull with that number underneath
Right.
of it.
What you do is whenever you get there, you lose 1. This is the victory points. So if you got a -1, you'd move down here.
Oh, you don't go this way.
I'm sorry, I take it back. Right there,
Oh, okay.
-1.
Gotcha.
You go to -1.
Okay.
And again, we're trying to get to 20.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
So the first one doesn't bother me as much. But as you go further, it will start costing you more. So right here, what I would have to do is immediately, because there's 2 things, I will cross off one. I'm not going to do it here because we're about to play the game.
Yes.
But I would cross it off, and then I would get to choose one of these 2. And let's say I choose the black, this is the pirate ship.
Okay.
I look up this column here, and it says if you have a ship in column B, you get to mark off 2 X's on the map over here.
Okay.
The only rule is you have to mark an X next to a place where there's already an X.
Okay. It's got to be adjacent.
But it doesn't have to be adjacent to the thing you just made. So I could put an X here, an X here, and an X there.
Sure.
They don't have to
You
be
can
in one.
spread out any direction.
As
you
long
want.
as they're touching an X, you can.
Okay.
When you go on a shipping lane, mostly nothing happens. When you get to islands, though, you start filling them in. When you fill in a whole island, you'll see this says sailor. Red numbers equal victory points next to something. So when you fill in these 4 spaces, the 4th space, you immediately will get 1 point, and you get to cross off the corresponding icon here. So 1 sailor, because it's got the 1 victory point sailor. There are, these represent, there's only one of these things on the board. So there's a 1 sailor here, and there's a 1 sailor here. There's a,
There's a 4 sailor.
right, there's a 4 pirate. All of
Yes.
them, there's 1
Okay.
space on here for the corresponding island on the map.
And just to be clear again, you need to fill them all in to get that, or
Yes.
okay.
You have to complete an island.
Complete an island,
Then you
okay.
immediately get the thing here. And in a future turn, now you'll have a sword to repel, just like you would in the regular game if you hired the sailor
Right.
by buying it with gold at the market.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
One other thing on the map here, as you're filling in, that's the basic concept, is if you're using a ship, you're filling in spaces here. And just like in a lot of roll and write games, you might get something that you fill out here that lets you kind of combo on to your main board, and you'll have it forever.
Right.
Now, some of the spaces on the maps have skulls. When you go onto that space, you have to cross the skull off. Some of them have these spots here are treasure chests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And what you'll see is down here under treasures on your board,
Yep. Right down
Yep.
here.
when one player gets that, they score the points, and everybody else has to cross that off their own board. You can't get that treasure.
Gotcha.
So keep that in mind. And
Okay.
they range anywhere from,
2 to 3.
yeah, and oftentimes you have to go through skulls and things to get to them.
Right.
So it costs you something. The other thing is some of the spots on the map here will have a color ship. What that means is in order to enter this space, the movement that you would have been using would have to come from that color ship. So in order for me to be able to cross this space off, this blue, I will have had to use a blue ship to move. And as you'll see on the other side, the things start getting a little bit more complicated, that might be more difficult to get to places. And they also start introducing new characters that come in on the different islands.
Okay.
So in the second map, you'll have captains and gunners that would do different things than the ones we have. So in this game, let's then go over the things that we have.
Yep.
We're going to have jesters. The jester island is right here. Just like in the real game, the jester would allow you to get money in the original game if, when it was your time to go to the market, there was nothing there. So in this game, if it's your time to go to the market, you will get to cross off something on the map.
Okay.
So even though you can't buy anything, you'll get some benefit. And you have to, again, cross it off next to something that's adjacent.
Okay.
Senorita, this is a one-time deal. And basically, when you fill up that island that has the Senorita on it, and that is up here,
At the top.
you immediately, and one time only, get to fill in one bubble in each island on the map.
Wow. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Next thing is you've got passenger, pretty easy. All you do is one time when you fill out that island, you get 5 points.
Okay.
Then more complicated, I guess, if you will. We already talked about sailors and pirates. Merchants and wholesalers. What these do is when you fill these in, if you get the one that's the yellow and orange island, this one here,
Yep.
for the rest of you get 1 point immediately. That's the red. And then for the rest of the game, anytime you move using a yellow or an orange ship,
Yep.
you get to move one extra space.
Gotcha.
So in this space, instead of moving 3,
Yep.
you'd get to move 4.
Okay.
All right. So that pretty much explains how the ships work. Got that?
Yes.
Now, one thing here about these in the market, when you pull a ship off, not when you put it down, but when someone purchases that ship, if there is a skull icon there, you have to cross off a skull. So if I use this ship,
Yep.
I have to mark off a skull.
Right.
And then this gets taken away. And I'll show you how the turn actually works in a second.
Okay.
The next thing that might happen is you might have these wheels. So for every color, there is a ship and there's a wheel, except for the pirate doesn't have a wheel. Whenever you get a wheel, and again, you don't have to actually pay for these things. When it's your turn, like if you're the active player and there are, let's say there,
You get to purchase.
you get to
whatever it
purchase
says.
first,
Yeah.
then everybody else gets to go
Right.
and take one thing. In the 2-player game, it's slightly different in that the first player goes, takes theirs, and it could be you might take 3 as the first player.
Right.
If there are any left, the second player gets to take the non-active player. And if there are any left after that, the active player gets to take one more. In the 2-player game, you get to go first and last. If there, you don't get to get 3 after the first go. Every player in clockwise order, which is the other player and yourself again, gets to do one thing. So if there are 5 things on the board,
Yes. So.
active player takes 3 of them right up front.
Oh, right
There's
up
2
front.
left.
Okay.
Then the next player, second player, would take one thing, and then the first player would get the
one
other
more.
thing.
Okay.
So what you'll find is when you get to 3 and 4, especially if you have 3 and you stop, you get 1, the opponent gets 1, and you get the other one.
Yeah. Right.
But only when it's your turn. So it goes back and forth as a 2-player.
sure,
game.
2 players a little different. Yeah.
So how do the wheels work? Whenever you take a wheel, you're going to go to the spot on your board where the wheels are. And you're going to do something right then. I'll show you how it works. It's easy. Let's start with the green wheel. Green wheel down here, the easiest. All you're going to do is you take the wheel and you fill in the leftmost bubble. It's going to get you victory points. You do that immediately, and then that you don't do anything else with the greens.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about orange. When you take an orange wheel, up here, what you're going to do is you can see there's a white circle. You're going to color the circle, the outside, make a circle over that.
Okay.
In the future, if you ever roll and you want to repel an attack, you can cross off any number of these circles that you've already made
That you've
to get
circled.
2 extra swords
Oh, okay.
for each one you do.
So
And
you're
they're
saving
one-time
them.
uses.
Yeah, you save them up, but then when you use them, you cross them off and they're done.
Right, so the sailor, he's this number 1 sailor here, it's every sailor is 1 repel no
Right.
matter what, forever. But these you spend and you get 2 bonus.
Okay.
Okay, so the first time you fill it, you make the circle. And on a future turn, you can cross off as many of those as you like. The blue, same thing. If you take a blue wheel, and that's the only spot a blue wheel would come in, then what you're going to do is you make the circle. On a future turn, you fill in the circle to re-roll the dice. You don't like them.
Okay.
And that's a one-time use per
Going
circle.
back to the wheels for a second here, when you bust when you get multiples of the ships, but not when
Right. When you get a multiple, that's a good question. And I'll show you how the full turn works. But when you roll and get a wheel that's already on there,
Yeah.
the wheel gets removed.
So if this yellow one is here and you get another yellow,
If I get
here,
an E0, then this just goes away.
Oh, wow.
Instead of moving it, this goes away, but you don't bust.
yeah, okay,
But then if you roll again
You can
and get
come
it, comes back
Sure.
on.
Okay,
All right, so the blue lets you roll again in a future turn.
all right,
Yellow, all right, the yellow wheel, you circle it. Then in a future turn, and it has to be a future turn, it can't somehow be the same turn, you would cross that off and it lets you double the movement for using a yellow ship. You can only do that once per turn.
yeah, okay,
So you can't keep crossing them off and double and get like 14, 22 moves with that yellow ship.
okay,
It does not double any bonuses you might have. For instance, we talked about the merchant and wholesaler. It lets you, when you travel, let's say with a yellow ship here, you get to go 1 extra space. The wheel bonus doesn't double that. So if you were moving 2 and you doubled it here, you'd get the 4 plus 1
yeah,
if you had this merchant.
okay,
Okay, got that? Red, you can use a red wheel when it's your turn during your action to cross off if there are at least 4 things on the board, doesn't matter what color they are. You can cross off one of these and then get 3 extra crosses on the board,
wow,
X's.
okay,
Okay?
yeah, that's a lot, sure,
All right. We didn't talk about, but this is a good time to talk about that. And is that it for the wheels?
yes,
That's
it
all the
is.
wheels.
Yep,
Let's talk about the Vice Admiral and the Admiral. It's a similar concept here. If you have the Vice Admiral and there are 4 icons, 4 items on the board, you can move an extra,
1, okay,
right? Same thing,
if you get the level 3 admiral,
right?
yep, and then the level 4 admiral, okay.
And they give you extra X's.
Gotcha, okay,
All right.
and are they accumulative?
Yeah, you can keep accumulating them, but with the red, you can do that one time. You can do that once on your action. You can cross that off. You may use exactly 1 red ship wheel during your action, and there are at least 4 ships or ship wheels on the board in any combination. If so, you may cross them off.
But if you've achieved all 3 of these vice admirals, you're not collectively adding an additional 5 on top of 4 or more, right? Are they cumulative? Or can you just choose
Yes,
one?
each one of them would let you do that.
Oh, okay. So you would add 5 more X's on your board if you had all 3 admirals.
I believe that is correct. Yes. Okay. Now, so let's go through a turn. There's 2 phases in the turn, and I'll show you how they work. So what you're going to do is you roll these, like I said,
Yep.
and you place out the stuff. So there's an E black. So this one is the only ship that can go 4 in one turn is the pirate ship, But when you take it, you have to mark off 2 skulls.
Yeah.
All right, so that's out there. Let's say I kept going and I rolled this and I rolled this, and then I decided to stop.
Okay.
That's the end of the discover phase. So that's phase 1. And then we would go shopping. So I would then choose first, since I'm the active player. And let's say I take the green, I would cross off this first one and I would get 1 victory point. Okay? Then it would be your turn to follow me to take only one thing.
Okay.
So you take that, and then what you would do is you would immediately cross off 2 skulls.
2 skulls.
And then you would get to move 4 spaces, which means you're going to put these X's out. So you could immediately build this. You get the sailor,
Or if you get a sailor,
or you can get a jester. Now, a setup thing. If you look on the map here, it's got normally this island would have 6 spaces, but if you're playing with less players on the jester in a 2-player game, you're going to cross off all 3 on the top. And in a 3-player game, you're going to cross off the first 2, leaving only 4 spaces that need to be filled to get the jester. So with a 2-player game, we're only going to have to fill 3 in during the game.
So we're going to cross off these top boxes.
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that right now.
Okay. So they don't count for 2
So in
players.
order to build this island or to occupy that island, you'll just have to mark off 3.
Gotcha.
You're going heavy on the ink. Look at you.
Yeah. I mean, black them out.
All right. So that would be the buy phase.
Okay.
Then because in a 2-player game, I would get
You would get
the
another-
3rd one,
yeah,
and the
another
same
choice.
thing. I would move 2, etc.
Oh, you get that too. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, it's
All right.
written up here. Now, if you bust, which happens, unfortunately,
Yep.
you still get something cool. You have to cross off a skull, but you get to mark off 2 X's.
Okay.
Now, the deal is, though, then we go to the buy phase, and you don't get to buy if you're the active player. Only the other player gets to go. And in a 2-player game, you don't get to go, you don't get the third, you don't get to go after, you don't get to follow. You're out of that phase.
Right.
Keep in mind, with the jester, because it would be your turn and you're unable to buy, because it's still your turn to buy, but you're not allowed to buy, you can cross off an extra X if you have the jester.
You do have
If
that.
you're the active player and you bust, that's the
Okay.
case.
Gotcha.
All right. Some cool things about the board that it took us a while to figure out when we were playing. These numbers here were confusing to us at first. This is telling you that on the die that has the A, it has 1 sword. The B will have 2 swords. So if you're looking to place, an orange ship, in order to repel that, if you've already placed one, you're going to need, you might need 4 swords to repel the roll to not bust. Meaning, let's say you have something here and you roll another orange ship. Let's say an orange C
Yeah. Orange C. Yep.
is 4 swords to repel.
Oh, 3 and
So
1.
this is telling you kind of your odds of being, of just like in the real game,
Right.
on the ship cards, it tells you what's the most powerful French ship or what's the
Right.
most powerful English ship and that sort of thing.
Okay.
All right. Does that
Yep.
pretty much? And again, okay, so let's explain this right here. So 20 points, you win the game immediately. If you have 11 or 12 points and it is your turn, if at any point during the turn you've pressed your luck so that there are 7 things on the board, you immediately win the game. Game over, you win.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if you're behind. That's 11 and 12. If you're at 13 and 14, you only require 6. Same thing, on the board at one time. And then if you have 15 or more, if on your turn you only have 5 of them on the board, you automatically win.
Okay.
And as the game goes on, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to build your engine. So at first, it's going to be very difficult. If you press your luck, the chances of you busting are pretty high because you can't repel anything.
Right.
But as the game goes on, you can go for those bigger turns. So when you do get to the sudden death areas,
Right.
it can change
Sure.
and accelerate really fast. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
You think you're ready to go?
Yeah.
Well, that is sort of, I don't know. That's me teaching Evil Jeff how to play Port Royal dice game at 2 players. The rest of the changes for the 5-player game is really the only other one. There's some setup changes and something to do with the treasure chests.
And notice how quickly I picked it all up.
Yes, you absorb it like an evil sponge.
Like an evil sponge.
Well, that is how to play Port Royal, the dice game,
Now we're going to play it.
and we're going to play it. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.